Hello boys, welcome back to another session of video tutorials, and this session is meant for class 12th biology boys, and this video is meant for 6th July 2020, and today we are entering into another new chapter, namely biodiversity and its conservation. Now you know the hot topic nowadays is biodiversity. We were discussing about ecosystems, and we said many ecosystems join together and form a very big ecosystem, and that biggest ecosystem is biosphere. And in that biosphere there will be diversity, means varieties of animals, varieties of plants will be growing. Then we say biodiversity. How do you define that? So biodiversity refers to variety of life forms and habitats found in a defined area. Now, as you all know, bios means life, diversity means forms, varieties of forms. So biological diversity can be defined as vast array of species of microbes, algae, fungi, plants, animals occurring on the earth, either in the terrestrial, aquatic, and the ecological complexes of which they are part of it. This includes diversity within species, between species, among the species of an ecosystem. Hence, we say it represents the totality of genes, species, and ecosystem of a given region. And we must be thankful to the gentleman whose photo you are seeing. The term biodiversity was introduced by an American biologist, Edward Wilson. So thanks to Mr. Edward Wilson. And what about the levels of biodiversity? The biological diversity includes three interrelated hierarchical levels. One is genetic diversity, means as the name suggests, genes. Is there any variety in the genes? If so, how many varieties of genes are present in all the species? Can we identify those? Can we identify the differences in the genes? And second, species diversity. As we have divided already, animal classification, plant classification based on major characteristics and minor characteristics, we have divided them, we classified them. So we understood there only based on the phyla, varieties of animals are there. Based on divisions, varieties of plants are there. And then ecological diversity. Many ecosystems, in our previous chapter we said desert is an ecosystem, river is an ecosystem, garden is an ecosystem, lake is an ecosystem. So varieties of ecosystems are there. So based on that, biodiversity can be divided into three diversities: genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecological diversity. Let's go to genetic diversity. The genetic variation existing within the species is called genetic diversity. The gene differences, the varieties of genes that are present within a species. Like if you take human beings, within the human beings, what are all the various varieties of genes are present. So the variation may be in alleles. Alleles, what are alleles? A pair of genes are called alleles. They may be homologous or heterologous. In genetics chapter, we will be discussing in detail about alleles and their influence. So the variation may be in alleles, that's pair of genes. One may be short, one may be dominant, one may be recessive, like that. And total genes, we say genome of the species, there may be varieties. Or structure of the chromosome, there can be some small chromosomes, small size, some big sized chromosomes, like that. So there can be differences or variations in chromosome structure. So basically when we talk of genetic diversity, we talk in terms of three differences, that is differences in alleles or varieties of alleles, total genome, and the total genome having varieties of genes and diversifying genes, and then structure of the chromosome. So number of the genes in the following like mycoplasma, 450 to 700 genes are identified. Now, are they same? All 450, 700? Sure, they are not same. So that's a diversity. E. coli, Escherichia coli, 4,000 genes. Drosophila melanogaster, 13,000. Oryza sativa, that is rice that we are eating, 32,000 to 50,000 genes. And our own Homo sapiens, our genome consists of 35,000 to 45,000 genes. Of course, Government of India with other governments spending crores of rupees on understanding our genes. And there is a separate project called HGP, Human Genome Project. Again, we'll be studying about that in detail in genetics chapter. And we'll be talking about a lot of human genes there. So this is how the genetic diversity, the diversity in the numbers and types of genes as well as chromosomes present in different species and the variations in the genes and their alleles in the same species. This is what constitutes genetic diversity. Now come to the second one, we move on, species diversity. Species diversity, the variety in the number, how many numbers are there, and richness of the species in a region. The number of species per unit area is called species richness, and the number of individuals of different species represent species evenness or species equitability. So the diversity at the species level is called species diversity. As you are all seeing, the Western Ghats have a greater amphibian species diversity than Eastern Ghats. Similarly, the species diversity depends upon number and the richness of the species. And how do you define species richness? The number of species per unit area. Now come to third one, ecological diversity. The diversity at the ecosystem level is called ecological diversity. As I said just now, we have got varieties of ecosystems. Like desert is an ecosystem, rainforests are ecosystem, mangroves are ecosystem, coral reefs are ecosystem, wetlands ecosystem, estuary ecosystem, alpine meadows, and your own at your home, since you are all staying in home, your own garden is an ecosystem. So varieties of ecosystems. So we say it is related to the different types of ecosystems or habitats. That it may be terrestrial ecosystem like forests, grasslands, deserts. It may be aquatic ecosystem like freshwater, marine ecosystems. Hence, ecological diversity is the diversity of ecosystems. And then you can see here ecological diversity. Look at the photos, very beautiful photos. Rainforests and mangroves. All those who are near seashore, you must have seen mangroves, and the estuaries, and of course coral reefs. Those who are in coastal area, Mangalore area, Mumbai area, you must have observed all these. So these are all ecological diversity. And when we talk of the global species diversity, we have got certain interesting statistics. According to the IUCN, what do you mean by IUCN? International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. The total number of plant and animal species is more than 1.5 million. Robert May estimated that global species diversity is about 7 million. And this is to be noted, more than 70% of all the species recorded are animals, and plants including algae, fungi, bryophyte, gymnosperms, angiosperms comprise about 22% of the total. These are all the statistics. And among animals, this is to be noted, insects are making up more than 70% of the total. Try to recollect to which phylum the insects belong to. Yes, you're right, Arthropoda. And we have got a way of representing this global species in the form of pie diagrams. Let's see. Out of every 10 animals on this planet, 7 are insects. So we think that human beings, we are dominant. It's not so. In terms of at least numbers, it is arthropods which are dominant. The number of fungi species in the world is more than the combined total of the species of fishes, amphibians, reptiles and mammals. Look at the domination of fungi. India has only 2.4% of the world's land area, but shares 8.1% of global species diversity. We hope we should increase this, and I hope sincerely that it is still prevailing at 8.1. India is one of the 12 mega diversity countries of the world. That's a good news for us. And look at the pie diagrams. Now, I want you to observe that invertebrates. Among invertebrates, we said under animal classification, try to recollect. And this is the where we said, look at the insects in the pie diagram, how much they are covering. Almost. So that is the reason why we said 70% of the animal population, the phylum Arthropoda, occupies maximum space. And then comes other animal groups, that yellow one. And then you got that indigo color, crustaceans and molluscans. Molluscans are also relatively occupying good space. And what about vertebrates? Look at the fishes. Half of that, 50% of the area, ecosystems, fishes, aquatic. And then comes, you got reptiles. Reptiles are occupying the space. There was a period, as all of you know, golden age of reptiles, remember? And then birds are occupying the next maximum space. And then comes the amphibians and mammals. Though we are dominant, we try to domain or be dominant on other animals, we are occupying relatively less. Look at the mammal space in the vertebrates pie diagram. And what about plants? In the case of plants, I want you to focus on fungi, left side. Yes, fungi has occupied maximum. And on the right side, our own beautiful flowering plants, angiosperms, and lichens, comparatively very small area, and algae, relatively bigger area. Look at that, algae is having relatively bigger area. And then look at the ferns and other algaes, very small area, and mosses next. So if you go from smaller to bigger, it is ferns and lichens are occupying very small area. And then next comes mosses, next comes algae, after algae it is fungi, and then now flowering plants, angiosperms. That's how in plants. So in examination he will give you this pie diagram, he will label you one or two, and what he wants, he will put it as X and Y. He will ask you to identify X and Y, and he will ask you to reason out also. Like for example, fungi, he gives X, and angiosperms, he gives Y. He will ask you first identify what is X and what is Y, and then he will ask you what is the significance of X and what is the significance and future of Y, like this. So the pie diagrams, please draw, try to understand what it is. Similarly in invertebrates also, invariably that maximum space insects, he will make it question mark, and he will ask you identify the question mark and why they are so rich. So species diversity decreases as we move away from equator towards the poles. I will repeat, species diversity decreases as we move away from the equator towards the poles. It increases in temperate areas but reaches the maximum in tropical rainforests. Maximum diversity occurs in Amazon rainforest and South America. Some of the reasons behind the maximum biological diversity of tropical regions are prolonged evolutionary time and constant environment, and third, high productivity. So three factors are influencing maximum species diversity. Number one, prolonged evolutionary time. Second, constant environment. There are no disturbances in the environment. Environment is very constant. And third, high productivity. Productivity rate is high. Then species diversity will be there. And we will be talking about further the species area relationship through graphical representation. And in our